Labyrinth's secret is not just that it's hard to escape. It's that the labyrinth was never only a building. It was a system. A system designed to make a city feel powerless. And the story begins, as so many Greek myths do, with a god's demand being ignored. Minos, king of Crete, was supposed to sacrifice a magnificent bull to Poseidon. He kept it instead, admiring it, profiting from it, treating a divine sign as personal property. That refusal triggers a punishment that doesn't strike Minos directly. It strikes his household. Poseidon makes Minos' wife, Pasiphae, desire the bull, and from that impossible union, the Minotaur is born. The monster is not random. It is a consequence with a face. Now Minos has a problem. Not just a beast, but a scandal, something that exposes the limits of royal control. So the story introduces the man whose name is basically synonymous with cunning intelligence, Daedalus. He builds a structure to contain what cannot be shown. A prison so elaborate it becomes its own legend, the Labyrinth. And here's where the myth locks into its darker rhythm. Athens becomes entangled with Crete through war, grievance, and tribute. Minos demands a recurring payment, 7 youths and 7 maidens, sent to Crete to be devoured by the Minotaur. The number shifts across traditions, but the point stays the same. This is not a duel, it's extraction. A city forced to feed its children into a foreign machine. That is the labyrinth's function. It is the physical center of a political arrangement, a maze that eats the future. When the next sending of victims comes, Theseus volunteers. And depending on the source, he isn't only brave, he's also strategic. The ship sets out under black sails, a sign of mourning, but Theseus makes a promise to his father, Aegeus. If he survives, he will return under white sails. This is a myth where symbols matter because symbols are how people live with dread. Crete is not depicted as a simple enemy land. It is rich, powerful, and ordered. Theseus arrives as both hostage and challenger. And then the story introduces its most underestimated figure, Ariadne. In the best-known tradition, Ariadne falls in love with Theseus, and love in Greek myth is rarely cute. It's a force that makes people betray families, cross borders, and gamble everything. She gives Theseus what no weapon can provide: a way back, a thread, a clue, a line that turns a maze into a solvable problem. Theseus fastens the thread at the door and draws it behind him as he enters. After killing the Minotaur, he follows it out. And there's the first layer of the secret. The labyrinth can't be beaten by strength. It can only be beaten by orientation, by preserving a path. So Theseus goes in. Some versions emphasize a weapon, others emphasize his bare hands. He kills the Minotaur by striking it with his fists. Either way, the heart of the scene is not gore, it's isolation. A human moving through a structure built to erase direction.
He kills the Minotaur. And then he does the most important part. He gets out. That's the real victory. Because if the labyrinth is a system, defeating the monster is only half the job. The other half is breaking the mechanism that keeps people trapped. Theseus escapes Crete with the rescued Athenian youths and with Ariadne. But Greek myth rarely allows clean endings. On the voyage back, Ariadne is left on an island, often identified as Dia or Naxos, depending on the telling. In one version, Theseus leaves her asleep and later forgets to change the black sails, leading Aegeus to believe his son is dead and to throw himself into the sea that will bear his name. And that fracture is part of the point. Because the story of Theseus versus the Minotaur isn't only about a hero killing a beast. It's about the costs of hero narratives. Who gets left behind? Who gets turned into a footnote? And what a city is willing to sacrifice to declare itself free.
Now, what is the labyrinth's secret? It's that the labyrinth is not just a maze of stone. Even in the oldest stories, Daedalus is a builder of patterned space, not only prisons. He is also described as the maker of a famous dancing floor, an image that links labyrinthine design to ritual movement, public display, and controlled choreography. So the labyrinth may have begun, in imagination, as something like a ceremonial pattern, an engineered space where movement is guided, repeated, constrained. And then the myth turns that idea dark, a pattern designed not for celebration, but for sacrifice. That is why the thread is so powerful. It is the one thing a system like that cannot tolerate, a line that preserves your own map inside someone else's architecture. Theseus's story, then, becomes more than a monster-slaying tale. It becomes a political myth of liberation, the end of tribute, the end of a humiliating bargain. The tribute is framed as a response to a civic crisis, one body offered to stop the recurring offering of many. But the Greeks also keep the moral edges sharp. Theseus is a hero, yes, but not a saint. The ancient accounts disagree on details and outcomes, including what happens to Ariadne and how Theseus escapes. That uncertainty is not a flaw, it's a feature of myth. It reminds you that these stories are not court transcripts, they are cultural arguments. So if you want one clean takeaway, it might be this: the Minotaur is terrifying because it's a monster, but the labyrinth is more terrifying because it's a structure that turns people into offerings and teaches everyone outside it to accept that as normal. Theseus doesn't merely kill a creature, he interrupts a system. He walks into the heart of an engine built to consume the young, and he returns with proof that the maze can be beaten, not by brute force, but by a thread, a simple tool that preserves direction, identity, and exit. And if you listen carefully, the myth is still asking its original question. When a society builds a labyrinth, legal, political, or psychological, who benefits from people getting lost? And what would it take to leave a line behind you that leads back out?